So next we're going to hear from Sinead Tuite. She's going to provide us with an update on the really important work that CBTU and the federal government have been doing on the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. So please welcome Sinead.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. As all of you know more than anyone else, meeting Canada's housing needs, advancing critical infrastructure, and delivering major industrial projects all depend on having the right workers in the right place at the right time, while ensuring those workers get fair wages, have strong worker protections, and opportunities for Canadians and apprentices are maintained and upheld. And that's why today's conversation about the Temporary Foreign Worker Program is so important. For those of you who don't know much about the program, it is really designed as a last resort to allow employers to fill short-term, temporary labor market needs when Canadians and permanent residents are not available. The program is demand-driven, which means when the economy is doing well, unemployment rates are low, job vacancy rates are high, there are mechanisms in the program to allow greater access. When unemployment rates go up and job vacancy rates go down, we tighten the program to make sure that domestic workers are always prioritized for available jobs. The Temporary Foreign Worker Program is actually a very small program relative to the overall labor force in Canada. So January 2026, there were approximately 250,000 temporary foreign workers in Canada across all occupations and all regions of the country. This is less than 10% of the overall labor force and people working in Canada at that point in time. While the numbers are modest, the impact can be significant in specific sectors and occupations, including the construction sector. Because of our program's name, there are often misconceptions about the scope and role of the program. We are not the only federal program or way that foreign workers can come into Canada and work on a temporary basis. In terms of our program, we're very much an economic program that is focused on sectors and areas of the country where labor markets are real and workers are in shortage. Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada also authorizes workers to come to Canada through various programs, including providing authorization for international mobility, worker exchange programs, experience programs, and intra-company transfers, and authorizing students who are studying here in Canada to be able to work. There are a few differences between the programs. Notably, the Temporary Foreign Worker Program has a mandate to first of all protect the Canadian labor market and the economy. So we do assess the labor market need, and we do have provisions in the program to make sure that employers are doing everything they can to prioritize and hire Canadians first before turning to the program. Immigration programs at IRCC also focus on the economy, but may also have broader social and cultural goals that determine whether someone can come and work in Canada or not. Our program is generally focused on employer-specific work permits. We look at a specific labor market need, a specific employer, and the conditions and wages that that employer is going to provide to a worker they're bringing in, where IRCC programs generally allow open work permits, which permit workers to move between employers to work in any sector or economy under conditions negotiated between them and the employer. As well, in terms of size, our program represents about 10% of all non-permanent residents authorized to work in Canada, with immigration managing about 90% of those workers. So I mentioned some of the guardrails that our program has to ensure that the labor market is protected and that workers are also protected when they're coming into Canada. We have something that's known as a labor market impact assessment process that employers have to demonstrate they are complying with all of the program requirements before receiving authorization to actually hire and bring in a worker from outside of the country. These look at whether the employer is genuine, whether the job offer is genuine, and whether efforts to first hire and prioritize Canadians are also genuine. So we do have requirements related to advertising and recruitment that have to be met before accessing the program. We do have wage requirements that have to be met. Any employer seeking to use the program, first of all, has to pay their temporary foreign workers the exact same wage as they're paying domestic workers for the same job in the same location. And that's assessed as either the prevailing wage for the occupation and the region or the union wage when there's a collective bargaining agreement in place. And finally, we do have mechanisms in the program that are calibrated based on risk and provides deeper dives whenever there's a question if the employer, if the sector, if the occupation may be of greater risk of having a negative impact on the Canadian labor market overall. So in terms of use, I mentioned the program overall is about 10% of the labor force. The construction sector generally makes relatively limited use of the temporary foreign worker program compared to some of the other sectors that do use the program, such as primary agriculture, food processing. About 6% of all approved positions under the temporary foreign worker program last year were related to the construction sector. Of these, about 70% were considered to be high-wage positions, which means that they were paying at least the provincial median wage plus 20%. 30% were considered to be below that threshold. Only about 6% of those jobs were identified as being unionized positions. So unions and unionized worker or employers are generally not high users of the program overall. So in terms of program use, I've included some details here. Hopefully they're not too small for you to see. But in terms of who's using the program, highest use in British Columbia, followed by Ontario and Alberta. Largely concentrated in major urban cities, so Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary are the biggest users overall, and that's about almost 85% of workers and requests are for major urban cities in Canada. And in terms of who's using the program, what kind of occupations and workers are they requesting, general laborers is the highest used, followed by carpenters, and then roofers and shinglers. So this represents about 1% of the total construction workforce in Canada from a use perspective. So in the introduction, Mr. O'Regan mentioned we are working with CBTU in terms of improving the program. Generally, when it comes to the role of unions, employers are encouraged to consult with unions before actually applying to the program. As we are assessing applications, we may reach out to unions if there are any questions overall, but we're really seeking to enhance and strengthen the role of unions, particularly construction unions, in the administration of the program to make sure that we really are achieving those goals of prioritizing Canadian workers first and only allowing workers to come in where there is that real and genuine need. So our deputy minister held a roundtable in September with a number of construction unions from across the country to talk about how the program is being used and what role unions might be able to play in terms of meeting those goals. And we do have a working group with unions is co-chaired by CBTU and involves unions representing laborers, carpenters, and iron workers to start, to develop a pilot that could look at what does a greater role for unions in the assessment of these applications that are coming in look like. We're also engaging bilaterally with a number of unions to look at, once temporary foreign workers are authorized to come in Canada, how can we make sure that they're actually being optimized, whether it's in a certain region, across an occupation, or for certain projects, so that we don't have to bring in even more temporary foreign workers if workers are already here in the country. We are having some very, very detailed and interesting conversations with our partners from the unions about how to meet these goals. We are looking to test these starting later this calendar year, with the goal that we could then refine and scale out to other occupations and other regions of the country once we have a model that we can work with. In terms of major projects, the Temporary Foreign Worker Program can be an accelerator to support major projects, again, only when Canadians and domestic workers are not available. An example of this is LNG Phase 1 in British Columbia, where there was approximately 1,300 short-duration, highly skilled technical workers that were brought in to support certain phases of the program, with the support of the province and the implicated unions, to verify that there really were not people in Canada that could do this job. This allowed the project to proceed apace, creating tens of thousands of jobs through the development and construction phase, and at completion will support 800 permanent and ongoing jobs for Canadians as a result of these workers coming in for a short period of time to do specific work. This is a model that we feel was very effective in terms of making sure that all of the program requirements that the Temporary Foreign Worker Program has in place are met before workers are brought in. It is linked to making sure that domestic hiring and training are met before employers actually access and authorize the program. And again, that idea of having union concurrence, that the needs really were there. And again, working with provinces and territories, there's an extra level of oversight to make sure that two levels of government are content with the efforts that employers are making before they access the program. I mentioned strong worker protections and conditions for workers as another goal of the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. And the program does strive to ensure that temporary foreign workers have and benefit from all the same workplace protections and rights as Canadians and permanent residents. I mentioned that an employer has to pay the same rate to temporary foreign workers coming in. In terms of workers coming through the low-wage stream, there are additional requirements. Employers have to pay their round-trip transportation costs, and they cannot charge those back to the workers. That would be considered non-compliance with the program. They have to ensure that affordable housing is available for those workers, no more than 30% of their take-home pay. And they have to ensure that workers have access to health care if the provincial healthcare system does not cover them on day one. And so we do have mechanisms to actually audit and investigate employers on both a risk and random basis to make sure that these conditions are being respected and complied with. If not, it's considered to be non-compliance with the program. We can fine employers. We can ban employers from using the program, and we can otherwise censor the employer to ensure that they are actually respecting program conditions overall. Some of the mechanisms we have to actually identify these cases and situations where the rules are not being respected include a confidential tip line and reporting tool targeted largely at workers themselves. It's available 24/7 in a range of languages, but also other stakeholders can use this tip line and this mechanism if they have concerns about temporary foreign workers on job sites or about employers using the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. We actually fund a variety of worker advocacy organizations across the country to work directly with temporary foreign workers to make sure that they are aware of their rights, the protections that are available to them, and how to seek redress if this is not being respected. And we have been working increasingly with provinces and territories to put in place and to leverage employer registries, which means that provinces and territories pre-screen employers to make sure they are fully compliant with all provincial labor laws before they are allowed to apply to the temporary foreign worker program. And our program really focuses on temporary foreign workers that are authorized to work in Canada for a specific period of time for a specific employer in a specific location. But the Migrant Worker Support Program does also assist workers if they fall out of status to try and help them reapply and regularize or maintain their status when that happens. So in terms of the work that we are doing together with CBTU and the other construction unions, we are really relying on unions and other partners to provide us sector-specific information in terms of use of the program and concerns about use of the program, specific cases, specific situations, specific information that helps us better target those non-genuine or non-trusted employers that may be misusing the program, particularly at the application phase. The goal is to identify and screen out those employers before they get into the program, although we are also focused on strengthening our mechanisms to detect those employers if they are using the program as well. Our goal from a program perspective is really to make sure that the program is being used as intended, that those guardrails are respected, and that those objectives of prioritizing the Canadian workforce and domestic opportunities and the program being used only as a last resort when workers really aren't available, and then those workers have the same protections and conditions as Canadians, is really being met. So we really appreciate the collaboration, the willingness and openness to work with us towards this goal of ongoing and continual improvement. And we're looking forward to the results of the working group and being here maybe next year or in the future, talking about how we're going to apply this in a broader way. So thanks to you all, and good luck with the rest of your conference.